Clinton Miner here from Sage Sawtooth Bushcraft. I want to share with you another resource. This is kind of one of those continuing theme issues. We've talked earlier about the value that you can find in dog bane in making cordage. Probably my other favorite thing that I can make cordage from is this plant right next to me here, and this is milkweed. When I was a kid, milkweed was talked about because that's what monarch butterflies eat, and that's one of the reasons we don't harvest it when it's green, although it will make great cordage while it's green. It isn't just a valuable resource for cordage, however. These young flowers can be cooked and eaten. Once the pods form, and I'll show you a very old pod here in a minute, those can be used as well for cooking. These broad leaves are just beautiful. You can tell they're almost velvety, and the stems are all green. One of the ways you can tell a difference between these and the dog bane, at least in my area, is as you go further down the stalk down to the ground, these have just a little bit of red in them, or kind of a brick orange. The dog bane becomes very, very reddish. And so this is just a great resource. When you cook these, one of the things you got to be careful with is that if you've got any latex allergies, these do have latex. They actually bleed. That's why they're called milkweed. A latexy, sticky film, and there's a couple things you can do with that. You can either boil that out or go ahead, if you don't have problems, and just use it. Now, these are obviously just starting to grow. Here on the ground next to me are some of the old stalks, and like the dog bane, these are way past their prime. In fact, it's been my experience that these need to be harvested even earlier than dog bane. They do go bad pretty early, but I'm going to show you that it isn't without any hope. Just like the dog bane, I've broken a piece off, and I'll do the same process of breaking that small piece and pulling it away. And what you'll find is, again, the same kind of a situation where I've got a papery outside and then some great fibers inside. I will show you some fibers that are processed in a little bit, but they are very white and I believe much softer than the dog bane, more of a satiny or silky composition. But as I roll these, you see that paper is coming off. You got the little snowflakes falling. That's that papery outside bark. There are other ways to get that off. Just like with the dog bane, I could scrape it a little bit. Where it's this far gone, I wouldn't do that because I'd be worried about ruining the fibers underneath. But surprisingly, actually better than I expected, these fibers in pretty good shape. You see that I've got these nice cream colored fibers, much like flax, much like linen. And again, just like with the dog bane, I can twist that until it loops over on itself, and I can just continue to make that reverse twist. We'll do a future video where I do some close-ups of that and we can get a little better feel for it. But even though it's June 6th, D-Day, I am still pulling this stuff off the ground and have the ability to turn that into a very strong, very soft fiber. I believe that this could easily be woven or spun and woven and made into clothing that would be very comfortable. It is also a very useful cordage for anything from, like we talked before, bowstrings to bow drill strings to shoelaces to, if you put a bunch of these fibers together, rope. and ultimately you have just a great fiber there. Now let me show you. These are some that I harvested in April, and you'll see these great big pods, and that's really the indicator of a milkweed. These actually still have the fluff in them, and that is an excellent tinder source. When I harvest these, like this one actually was laying flat on the ground, so it's got a lot of mud on it, but when I harvest them, I try also to find the seeds in here. These have all got a ton of seeds inside, and I spread those so that I have the resource renewed over and over again. I do leave it typically until after the green has gone, because that's where the butterflies are. I leave it until the green is gone because that's the actual monarch butterfly lays its eggs on the underside of these. Once those butterflies hatch, or once those eggs hatch, then the caterpillar eats these leaves, ultimately creating its Christus, its cocoon on this, and then turning into the monarch butterfly. So we're real careful with these, but in a survival situation, these green plants can be harvested and processed much the same way I was just showing, and turned into a very, very high quality, functional, strong, and in fact quite beautiful cordage. Here we've got one of the buds that has actually opened up, and you see this beautiful flower. Each of those, if it is germinated, will turn into one of those pods that'll have 1,000 seeds in it. And each of those pods, again, while it's still green and hasn't seeded out, will be edible. Just an incredible plant. I've got here that piece of cordage that I just was doing the reverse twist on, and you can see that these fibers are not as perfect as they'd be if they were a little more earlier harvested, but as I twist those, you can see how fine and almost silk-like those fibers are, and that's what makes this such a great process, or a great resource, that I can just keep twisting that, and like we did in previous videos, keep going until this is as long or as short as I want it. I have a couple of examples of some milkweed that was harvested a little more appropriate time, and you can see that it is just a kind of a linen white, and you can see those fibers are just very, very fine and very soft. And I'm going to compare that. You see next to this, that is the dogbane fiber, about the same size, probably maybe a little stronger, although it's very hard to tell any real strength difference. Not as soft, but more like an actual cord. And as we compare the fibers, you can see that the milkweed fiber on the left there is a finer fiber, and just I believe that it could easily be used for fabric, as well as I'm sure it would take a lovely dye. So just a very wonderful resource. So as we look at this stand of milkweed, a weed like dogbane that is pretty prevalent throughout North America, we see something that can help us be prepared for food and cordage, both things that are difficult to find in the wild in most circumstances. And being prepared, you know, that's something that helps us stay out of trouble, because as we say here at Sage to Sawtooth Bushcraft, if you're prepared, you're never really lost. If you like these videos, please give us the thumbs up. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe. If you want to support this channel and Sage to Sawtooth Bushcraft, you can go to our webpage at sagetosawtoothbushcraft.com and check out the great products we sell there, as well as the classes that we teach. And once again, thank you.